Joining us now is the director of Abuja School of Socio-Political Thought, Dr. Sam Amadi. Glad to have you join us, Dr. Sam.
Good evening, thank you.
Would that include you? Is what, I know you're a public servant. I mean,
well, I was a civil servant.
Civil servant.
I was a public servant at some point, yeah.
Yeah, okay, so it's sounding like an open-ended, wild, I don't know what you make of it.
Well, good chance, you would say. Well, in a sense, I mean, there's no doubt that civil servants have been terribly corrupt. If you look at some of the schools in Abuja here, for example, some of the top schools, secondary schools, they're owned by persons who at various times, Director of Education in FCT. If you look at estates, they were owned by persons who were either chief architect or who worked in the FCT. So the Nigerian state has been a criminal state in many senses. And that's why, of course, you have generals, retired generals, stupendously rich. There's basically no reason why a general would be a billionaire or a millionaire, because a general starts early, gets into recruitment, you get the point. So you wouldn't have said, oh, he probably was an established businessman and turned to a general, unlike a politician. A politician can be a billionaire and switch to politics, you get the point. But when you see generals, so it tells you that the state has been continually stolen. So no question about it, that some of the civil servants are perhaps the most corrupt. So he's right on that sense. But now say, you know what? We're going to be going to estates, asking people how they make their money. Okay, land is supposed to be indexed, there's supposed to be ownership, value, and then people have earnings. So the court have heard that perhaps, if you can't prove the source of your wealth, it could be prima facie evidence that the wealth is not equal, but it cannot be conclusive. And again, the question is, in priority, if you want to fight corruption, why go taking the numbers and asking questions about one estate when actually you have very clear case of corruption? I recall about 3-4 years in 2023, I guess, before the 2023 election, after the 2019 election, when there was allegation of bullion van going to body loan home of now president, there are some activists, and I went with them, wrote petition to EFCC to get into that matter. They didn't respond. They said they would never go into it. So the question is, if the EFCC really cares about corruption, you don't need to go and do a wild goose chase and asking who owns this property. I started working in 1954, give us a payslip. There are tangible, low-hanging fruits of persons who are really corrupt, who you can find evidence to nail. And so the question people ask, what has the EFCC done about the cases that we know, people that have even by themselves said they are corrupt, former governors, who are probably now president of Senate or speaker or different things. So this is a cop-out, essentially. The sentiment that civil servants are corrupt is well established. Arguably, some people say more corrupt than the ministers and governors. But the notion that the way to track it is to go to do a head count of houses and imagine who owns it, where have you worked before. When you have real, EFC can really put 10 people to prison before the close of half a year.
And not just
big people.
Not just civil servants.
Big people. So I'm saying in terms of priority, yes, civil servants have been corrupt because they're corrupt because the whole establishment, I give you an example, I say take generals. This is a constituency that you can say somebody starts from 23 years, 30 years, get enlisted, added as a lower level. Suddenly they're all billionaires. What is happening? That's easy to trace. So yes, this civil service in Nigeria is actually extremely corrupt. In fact, there's some low level. I've met a young guy who is a low level civil servant. He has about 5-6 houses in my estate. He's even was seeking employment in my neck. Told me that he was seeking a low level employment. How did he get this money? These are funds. They're just stealing the country dry.
2 questions that I ask you based on the issues you've raised. 1, 80%. How did he arrive at that figure? That's 1.
Well,
2,
yep.
I know that the late president said if we don't kill corruption, it will kill us. You're a lawyer. What is the best way? Because you talked about a law officer, you talked about army generals, you talked about politicians who were
Or maybe rich, or maybe
or
not
have
rich.
our politicians who were not,
Who are totally
and
poor.
then have to. How do we really
Solve the problem.
begin to make inroads into solving this problem?
I think it's complex but very simple. I will have to borrow from President Yaradua. Now, there's a speech he gave, very brilliant speech. He says, we are going to make a law. First, he declared his asset publicly, so you probably have to mandate it. Everybody declares asset, but then he said public. The law says declare and they file it away. Number one, simple thing as public disclosure of assets. Everybody can check it up. Two, he says he's going to make a law for whistleblowers protection, give incentive for people to whistleblow. Three, you're going to make a law, for example, things like budgets. Look at procurement process. No president has agreed to set up the procurement council, independent of the president. So when you talk about Bureau of Public Procurement, it's a sham. I mean, this is president's alter ego. They go through a process, but they just basically ratify what the president wants to do. So that's why you see issues about Buhari awarded a contract, and then when Tinubu comes, they re-award the same contract and tell it still to a different person. So this is a shambolic process. Three, you can't fight corruption until two things happen. One, they said openness is the enemy of corruption. That's number one, publicity. Let things be open. People can access. Two, empower people by law. So don't leave discretion. Some of those vicious conducts had to be made mandatory by law. Things like disclosure asset. Thirdly, you have to organize citizens and make them capable of extracting accountability. So if the president declares asset, for example, and then when he's leaving, we don't know the asset, it's not public, can we issue right of information and get that document and cross-check with property? Can we ask property, give us the beneficial owners? So there are many things we have used officialdom to seal information. And until citizens can really know and extract. So the legal approach is to reduce discretion, and the classical definition of corruption is power plus discretion minus accountability. You have to reduce discretion. You have to create a process of extracting accountability. You have to empower citizens and citizen group with capacity to monitor, track, report, and take legal action. I just give you an example. Look at Electoral Act, for example. Many of the decisions, if, for example, you allow individuals who are not candidates to go to court to challenge elections conducted against due process, you are empowering people. So you have to create incentive for people to monitor, to whistleblow, to track, to report, and then force prosecution. You have to create that opportunity.
Are we ready to do all that you're
That's
saying?
the key point. So if you have presidents, governors, whose life has been basically about corruption, this is the fact. How can they ever... So fighting corruption in Nigeria is like a game. The only time we can fight corruption is when those who are going to fight corruption, their political success and career does not depend on corruption. And so it's difficult for a typical Nigerian politician to empower an EFCC. The EFCC chairman probably knows what to do. He's been around there, he's smart enough. But he's going to be doing things, gimmicks here and there, tackle people who have no political consequence, overlook people who have political consequence, and then he'll come to the public and say, we will fight corruption. That doesn't work. In fact, if you take down one powerful, politically connected, a friend of Mr. President Tinubu, and take him down, it's more than taking down 500,000 Yahoo boys. It's more than taking down 500 civil servants who are corrupt. Just take down that person who has the great connection to the center of power.
What do you make of the
It has a cascading effect.
What do you make of the Chinese model? Even Japanese?
You see, the thing about what China is doing is it's like the Greek mythology, it's anthology. So when in the Greek, the king there's an epidemic, and the king advises, everybody is angry for the king. The king orchestrates a public execution, and everybody's gathered, and they come there and lay the person down and cut him. So that dramatic tragedy triggers a sense of threat, and fear. Everybody goes home quiet. That's what China does. So China is not just saying we're against corruption. They take somebody and maybe brutally dramatize what they mean. and send shock across. So people not know really that the consequence of corruption is actually real. So look at it this way. I don't think Nigerians will ever fight corruption because the incentive rewards corrupt people. Our electoral system is so criminalized that only criminals can really work that system. And that's why they tell you, this person hasn't got the muzzle to win election. Because the whole process is designed to favor criminals and corrupt people. So when a system is actually designed to favor, I think it's actually, people, Nigeria should be, there should be an injunction from other foreign countries to say, Nigeria, stop talking about corruption. Because every day you open the newspaper, what you see is orchestration for corruption. So the simple issue that corruption is trackable. Corruption, many countries have done it. Many countries have reigned in corruption. They have limited corruption. But it starts with, it's top down. Unlike most things people say bottom up. The corruption fight is extremely a top-down phenomenon. People don't just become vicious. Nigerians start shun corruption, civil servants start being, when I was NEC, for example, everybody can testify that that period was a period of almost zero corruption. We came number one. Why? First, I declared code of conduct open. Secondly, we signed up. Any gift more than 35,000, I will register it. Everybody knew that the commissioner, not just me, we are manifestly exams, open results, everything. So once you run a system that's open and transparent, you define corruption. People know that people on top are not corrupt. And the consequence, because they are not implicated, they have no incentive to shield anybody. And so when you are caught, zoom, they zoom you off.
You pay the
That's
price.
the deterrence. In Nigeria, deterrence doesn't exist. And so when EFC says you're going to go over the town looking for who owns what house, it's a cop-out. It's that we can't deal with the real thing. Guys, let's orchestrate a drama.
Maybe what you could call a drama or
a make-believe.
Yeah,
I'm not even saying low-hanging, make-believe.
Okay,
because you're going to dispense with the few people who have no connection.
All right.
But the real guys are free and enjoy
All right.
the
And then, of course, I mean, at times I wonder, really, when people buy forms for 100,000 to contest.
And so when you weaponize the campaign financing, you are giving more incentive to corruption in public service.
We'll leave it there.
Thank
All right, joining us, that's the Director, Abuja School of Social and Political Thought, Dr. Sam Amadi. Thank you for always being here to add, reasoning to these thoughts.